Vivian Parker received red roses every Friday for 4 weeks straight. No card, no name. Just 24 perfect roses delivered to her door like clockwork. She posted about her mystery admirer, wondered who he was, never imagining that the gorgeous man watching from across the cafe had been following a family tradition that was older than both of them combined. Tell me where you're watching from, because tonight you'll discover that sometimes the most romantic gestures come with the most dangerous secrets. The cafe in Chelsea was busy for a Tuesday afternoon, but Nico Fiorentini barely noticed the crowd. He was supposed to be 3 blocks away at a meeting that had been canceled at the last minute, and Paolo was currently rearranging his schedule to accommodate the change. He should leave, get back to the gallery. Handle the shipment arriving from Florence. Return calls from associates who needed decisions only he could make. Instead, he stood in line for an espresso he didn't particularly need, because he'd heard laughter that stopped him in his tracks. The woman at the corner table had her phone pressed to her ear, completely absorbed in whatever conversation she was having. Her laugh was genuine, unfiltered, the kind that made other people smile just hearing it. Dark blonde hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and her eyes, even from across the room, sparkled with animation. She was wearing a navy blazer over a white blouse, professional but relaxed, and there was a stack of manuscripts on the table beside her coffee cup, red pen in hand, making notes even as she talked. Chapter 12 is absolutely insane in the best way, she said into the phone, her voice carrying just enough for him to hear. I can't believe she actually went there with the plot twist. It's brilliant. Nico found himself staring. He didn't do this, didn't stop to notice women, didn't have time for distractions. His life was the gallery, the family business, the endless responsibilities that came with running an organization his grandfather had built from nothing. But something about her, about the way she gestured enthusiastically while talking about a book, about the pure joy on her face, captured his attention completely. He ordered his espresso, stayed longer than necessary, watching discreetly as she finished her call and returned to her manuscripts, smiling to herself about something she was reading. Paolo appeared at his elbow. Boss, your next meeting is in 20 minutes. Who is she? Nico asked without looking away. Paolo followed his gaze. I don't know. Want me to find out? Yes. His security chief looked surprised. In the 10 years Paolo had worked for him, Nico had never once asked about a woman. But he nodded and pulled out his phone, making quiet calls while Nico continued to watch the woman at the corner table. 10 minutes later, Paolo had answers. Vivian Parker, 29, book editor at Cornerstone Publishing, lives in Chelsea 3 blocks from here, single. No criminal record, no debt problems, completely clean background. Vivienne, Nico repeated softly. It was a beautiful name. It suited her. Boss, we need to go. I know. But he looked back one more time before leaving, memorizing her face, the way her hair caught the afternoon light, the unconscious grace in how she moved. He should forget about her. Focus on business. Move on with his life. He knew he wouldn't. That night, Nico drove to his mother's house in Brooklyn for their regular Sunday dinner. Giuliana Fiorentini ruled her kitchen like a general commanded an army, and her sons knew better than to be late. His 2 younger brothers were already there with their wives and children, the house full of noise and warmth and the smells of his childhood. But Nico was distracted, pushing food around his plate, barely engaging in conversation. His mother noticed immediately. Of course she did. Domenico, she said, using his full first name the way she only did when she was serious. What's wrong? Nothing, Mama. Don't lie to your mother. I've known you since birth. What's wrong? He set down his fork. His brothers were watching now, along with their wives, everyone curious about what could possibly be bothering the unshakable Nico Fiorentini. I met someone, he said quietly. Sort of. I saw someone, at a cafe today, and I can't stop thinking about her. The table went silent. Then his youngest brother Luca started laughing. You? Thinking about a woman? Nico, you haven't dated anyone seriously in 5 years. Which is why I'm asking for advice. He looked at his mother. Nono had a tradition. With Nona. The roses. Do you remember? Juliana's expression softened immediately. Of course I remember. Your grandfather sent your grandmother red roses every Friday for a month before he formally introduced himself. It was to show serious intention, that he wasn't playing games, that when he chose someone, he chose with his whole heart. Papa did the same with you. He did. 4 weeks of roses, no card, no identification, just beautiful red roses arriving at my door every Friday. I thought I'd go mad with curiosity. She smiled at the memory. But when he finally appeared on my doorstep in the 5th week, it was worth the wait. Because I knew then that he was serious. That this wasn't some casual interest. He'd followed the tradition, shown respect, demonstrated patience. Do you think it would still work? The tradition? I think, Juliana said carefully, that if you've met a woman who's made you stop and think, who's captured your attention the way no one has in years, then yes, follow the tradition. Show her you're not a man who makes impulsive decisions. That when you choose someone, you choose with intention and respect. So I send the roses. You send the roses. 4 Fridays. 24 roses each time. No card, no name, nothing to identify yourself. Then, on the 5th Friday, you present yourself formally. You tell her why you sent them, and you hope she understands what they mean. What if she doesn't? What if she thinks it's creepy or strange? Then she's not the right woman for you. But if she's the one, she'll be curious. She'll wait. And when you finally reveal yourself, she'll appreciate the gesture for what it is. A demonstration of serious intention. Luca was shaking his head. This is the most romantic thing I've ever heard you consider, Nico. Are you sure you're feeling okay? I'm fine. I can't explain it. I saw her for maybe 10 minutes and I haven't been able to get her out of my head. His mother reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Then send the roses. Follow your heart. Follow the tradition. See what happens. The first Friday, Nico personally selected the roses from the florist his family had used for 3 generations. 24 perfect red roses, stems long, blooms just beginning to open. He arranged for anonymous delivery to Vivian Parker's address, with strict instructions that there be no card, no sender information, nothing to identify him. When Paolo raised his eyebrows at the order, Nico simply said, "Family tradition. Don't ask." That evening, he found himself checking his phone obsessively. He'd had someone monitoring her social media, which felt invasive but necessary. He needed to know if she received them, how she reacted. At 6:15, she posted an Instagram story. A photo of the roses in a vase on her table, with the caption, "Someone sent me flowers but forgot to identify themselves. Secret admirer?" Nico stared at the image for a long time. She'd arranged them beautifully, and he could see the corner of her living room in the background. Books everywhere, cozy and warm, exactly what he'd imagined. Paolo appeared in his office doorway. "Boss, the shipment from Milan needs your signature. In a minute. You're staring at your phone like it holds the secrets of the universe." She got the roses. She posted about them. "And you're smiling. I've never seen you smile at your phone before. Shut up and get me the shipping manifests." But Paolo was right. He was smiling. The second Friday, Vivienne was more curious. Nico knew this because she called the delivery service, trying to find out who sent them. The service, well compensated for their discretion, gave her nothing. He'd set up the payments through an offshore account specifically to maintain anonymity. She posted again. Week 2 of Mystery Roses. "Secret admirer, if you're seeing this, I appreciate it, but a hint would be nice." He almost responded. almost broke the tradition to message her directly. But that wasn't how this worked. 4 weeks. Then he'd introduce himself properly. On Tuesday of the second week, he returned to the cafe where he'd first seen her. It was calculated, he knew, but he wanted to see her again. Just once. Just to be sure this feeling was real. She was there, at the same corner table, working on manuscripts. When he walked in, their eyes met for just a second. She smiled, polite and friendly, the way people do when they make brief eye contact with strangers. She didn't recognize him, had no idea he was the one sending her roses. He ordered his espresso, sat at a table across the room, and pretended to work on his phone while actually watching her. The way she chewed her pen while thinking, how she made little notes in margins. The small laugh when she read something that amused her. She was on a phone call with someone, discussing a manuscript. He could hear fragments of her side of the conversation. "No, I think the pacing in Act 2 is perfect. The problem is Act 3 drags. We need to cut about 15 pages there." Pause. "I know the author loves that subplot, but it's not serving the main story. Trust me on this." Professional, confident, knew exactly what she was talking about. Paolo texted him, "Boss, you have a meeting in 15 minutes. He typed back, "I know." "Then why are you still at the cafe?" "Mind your business." But he left a few minutes later, glancing back once to see her absorbed in her work, completely unaware of his attention. That evening, he found himself researching Cornerstone Publishing, looking up the books they'd released recently, trying to understand her world better. Several bestsellers, a strong literary fiction list, some promising debut authors. She worked for a good house. She was good at what she did. He wanted to know everything about her professional life, her passions, what made her excited about stories. The third Friday, something shifted. The roses arrived as usual, and this time her post said, "Week 3. Okay, mystery admirer, you have my attention. Whoever you are, thank you. These make my apartment feel less lonely." The word lonely hit him harder than expected. She lived alone. Worked long hours, based on the time she posted and when he'd seen her at the cafe. She deserved someone who would make sure she never felt lonely again. He could be that person. He wanted to be that person. On Saturday, he followed another impulse and went to the bookstore she'd posted about visiting. He found her in the historical fiction section, running her fingers along spines, reading back covers with that absorbed expression he was coming to recognize. He stayed on the opposite side of the store, watching as she selected 3 books and carried them to the register. She was wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair up in a messy bun, completely casual, and somehow even more beautiful than when she was dressed for work. Paolo had followed him there and was giving him looks that clearly said, "This is getting concerning, boss." Nico ignored him. He wasn't stalking. He was just making sure she was safe while he followed the tradition. There was a difference. At least that's what he told himself. The fourth Friday, he sent 36 roses instead of 24. And for the first time, he included a card. Just one line, written in his own handwriting. "See you next Friday. N." He imagined her receiving them, reading the note, finally knowing that next week she'd meet her mystery admirer. The anticipation was almost painful. Her post that evening was a photo of the larger bouquet with the caption, "Week 4, and a note. "Looks like I'm finally meeting my mystery admirer next week." Nervous and excited in equal measure. Paolo found him in his office that night, staring at the post again. "Boss, you're going to her apartment next Friday." "I am." "And you're going to tell her everything? About the tradition? About why you sent the roses?" "Yes." "What if she's not interested? What if she thinks you're crazy?" "Then I'll respect that and walk away." Nico looked up at his friend. "But I don't think she will. I think she's been waiting for this just as much as I have." You're putting a lot of faith in a tradition that's, 3 generations old? 4, actually. My great-grandfather started it, and it's worked every single time. When a Fiorentini man follows the tradition, he finds the woman he's meant to be with. He smiled slightly. Besides, I'm not usually a romantic, but something about her makes me want to be. I've noticed. You've been different the past month, more human. I'm always human, Paolo. You know what I mean. You smile more. You're less tense. It's good. She's good for you, and you haven't even met her properly yet. Then let's hope next Friday goes well. Friday evening arrived with agonizing slowness. Nico had the final bouquet, 24 perfect red roses, and he'd rehearsed what he wanted to say at least 100 times. He knew it would sound insane. I saw you at a cafe and couldn't stop thinking about you, so I followed a family tradition and sent you anonymous flowers for a month. But it was the truth. And if Vivian was the woman he thought she was, she'd understand. He arrived at her building at 7:30. The doorman tried to stop him, but one look at Nico's face, and the man simply nodded and stepped aside. There was something about Nico when he was determined that made people move out of his way. He climbed the stairs to her 3rd-floor apartment, stood outside her door for a moment collecting himself, then knocked. She opened the door, and the sight of her made his carefully prepared speech evaporate from his mind. She was beautiful. Dark jeans, a soft green sweater that brought out the color of her eyes, hair loose around her shoulders. No makeup that he could see, but she didn't need it. She was perfect exactly as she was. And she was staring at him with obvious surprise, her lips slightly parted, eyes wide. "Vivienne Parker," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "That's me. And you are?" "Nico Fiorentini." He held out the roses. "I'm your mystery admirer. May I come in?" She took the roses automatically, stepping back to let him enter. Her apartment was exactly what he'd imagined from the glimpses in her photos. Books everywhere, cozy furniture, warm lighting. It felt like a home, not just a place to live. "You sent all the roses," she said, setting them on her kitchen counter and turning to face him. "I did. For 4 weeks. It's a family tradition. My great-grandfather did it before courting my great-grandmother. My grandfather did it with my grandmother. My father did it with my mother. When a Fiorentini man is serious about a woman, truly serious, he sends roses for a month before formally introducing himself. That's very old school. My family values tradition and patience and demonstrating serious intention." He took a step closer, not crowding her but making his presence felt. "I saw you at a cafe 5 weeks ago. You were on the phone, laughing about chapter 12 of something. You had manuscripts spread across your table, and you were making notes with a red pen. And I couldn't look away. You've been watching me? I've been making sure you're safe while following the tradition. The rules are 4 weeks of roses with no contact, then a formal introduction. I didn't approach you before because that would break the tradition, show disrespect to what it means." She crossed her arms, studying him. He couldn't read her expression, couldn't tell if she was flattered or concerned or somewhere in between. "So you sent me flowers for a month and now you're here to... what? Ask me on a date?" "Yes. Tomorrow night. Dinner. Wherever you want to go. Your choice completely." "That's incredibly presumptuous." "It is," he agreed. "But I'm a man who knows what he wants. And I want to get to know you, Vivienne Parker. I want to take you to dinner and hear you laugh about books in person instead of from across a cafe. I want to understand what makes you light up when you talk about stories. I want to know everything about you. You don't even know me. I know you're a book editor who works too late and drinks too much coffee. I know you laugh at things you read and make notes in red pen. I know you said your apartment feels lonely, and I want to change that. I know that when our eyes met in the cafe 3 weeks ago, you smiled at me, and I haven't stopped thinking about that smile since. She blinked. You were at the cafe? I remember. There was a man. Dark hair, intense eyes. That was you. That was me. And you came back. You were watching me. I was making sure the roses were having the intended effect, making sure you were curious, that you were waiting. He stepped closer again. Tell me you weren't. Tell me you didn't wonder every Friday who was sending them, what it meant when you'd finally meet me. Tell me you weren't hoping, just a little, that whoever I was would be someone you could be interested in. She was quiet for a long moment, and he could see the thoughts racing behind her eyes. Then softly, I was hoping. Every Friday, when the roses arrived, I'd wonder who you were, what you looked like, why you chose me. And yes, I was hoping you'd be someone worth waiting for. Am I? I don't know yet, but I'm willing to find out. She smiled slightly. Dinner tomorrow. There's an Italian place I've wanted to try. Osteria Marini. I know it. Excellent choice. I'll pick you up at 7. You're very confident that I just said yes. You did say yes. I did. She laughed, a real laugh that lit up her whole face. This is completely insane. You sent me anonymous flowers for a month, and now I'm agreeing to go to dinner with you. My friends would say I'm being reckless. Sometimes the best things require a little recklessness. He moved toward the door, then paused and looked back. One more thing. The roses. They're not just tradition. In my family, red roses have meaning. They represent serious intention, commitment, the promise of something real. I don't give them lightly. What are you saying? I'm saying that I don't do casual. When I decide on something, on someone, I commit fully. And I've decided on you, Vivian. Tomorrow is just the beginning. He left before she could respond, closing the door softly behind him. In the hallway, he allowed himself a moment to exhale, to process what had just happened. She'd said yes. She'd been hoping. This was real. Paolo was waiting in the car outside. How did it go? She said yes to dinner tomorrow. Of course she did. You're very persuasive when you want to be. It wasn't persuasion. It was tradition, and it worked. So what happens now? Now I court her properly, and hope she doesn't run when she finds out everything else about my life. Their first date was perfect. Nico picked her up at 7, drove her to Osteria Marini, and spent 3 hours talking to her over incredible food and wine. She told him about her work, about loving books since childhood, about her family in Chicago. He told her about the galleries, about growing up in an Italian family, about his love of art. The restaurant was warm and intimate, candlelit tables, and the smell of fresh bread. They started with bruschetta and burrata, and the conversation flowed so naturally, it felt like they'd known each other for years, instead of hours. Tell me about editing, he said, genuinely curious. What's it like working with authors? It's incredible and frustrating in equal measure. She broke off a piece of bread. You're helping someone shape their vision, make their story the best it can be. But sometimes they're precious about every word. Can't see that cutting a scene would make the whole book stronger. How do you handle that? Patience, diplomacy, and sometimes brutal honesty wrapped in kindness. She smiled. I had an author last month who wrote this beautiful literary novel, but buried the emotional core under 50 pages of description. I told him to cut everything that didn't serve the character's journey. He was devastated at first, then came back 2 weeks later saying it was the best advice anyone had given him. You're good at what you do. I love what I do. There's nothing like discovering a new voice, helping them find their story, then seeing it in bookstores knowing you were part of making it happen. He watched her face light up as she talked, the passion evident in every word. What made you become an editor? My mom. She's an English teacher, always had books everywhere in our house. She'd read to me and my brother every night, different voices for different characters, making stories come alive. I grew up thinking everyone lived surrounded by books. She paused, took a sip of wine. When I was 12, I rewrote the ending of a book I didn't like, showed it to my mom. She said, "Viv, you have an editor's mind. You see what stories could be, not just what they are." That stuck with me. Your family must be proud. They are, though my dad wanted me to be a lawyer, more stable income. She laughed, but I can't imagine doing anything else. I understand that. The galleries were my father's passion before mine. He'd take me to museums when I was young, teach me about composition, color, history. Art tells stories without words, he used to say. Every piece has a narrative if you know how to look. Their entrees arrived. Pasta for her, ossobuco for him. The conversation shifted to families, childhoods, the weight of legacy. What was it like growing up in your family? She asked. Big Italian family dinners, I'm guessing? Every Sunday, without fail. My grandmother ruled the kitchen like a general. My mother learned from her. Now she does the same. Sundays aren't optional. You show up, you eat, you spend time with family. It's sacred. That sounds wonderful. We had family dinners too, but quieter. Just the four of us. My brother and I would fight over who got to share their week first. She smiled at the memory. He's in med school now at Northwestern. Brilliant kid. Wants to be a pediatric surgeon. And your parents? Both teachers. Mom teaches English at the high school. Dad teaches history. They met in college, got married young, built this calm, stable life in the suburbs. Very different from the chaos of Manhattan. Do you miss it? Chicago? Sometimes. I miss my family. But New York feels right. The energy, the opportunities, the constant motion. I needed this. She met his eyes. What about you? Have you always lived here? Born in Brooklyn. Grew up there. Moved to Manhattan for college and never left. The city is in my blood. I can't imagine living anywhere else. They talked through dessert, tiramisu they shared, neither wanting the evening to end. He learned she loved historical fiction but secretly read romance novels. She learned he collected rare art books and could speak 4 languages. He didn't tell her about the organization. Not yet. That could wait until she knew him better, until she cared enough that the truth wouldn't send her running. At the end of the night, standing outside her door, he wanted desperately to kiss her. But he held back, just brushed his lips against her forehead instead. Can I see you again? He asked. I'd like that. Monday? Dinner at my place. I'll cook. You cook? I'm Italian. Of course I cook. She laughed. Monday then. Over the next several weeks, they fell into a pattern. Dinners several times a week, sometimes at restaurants, often at his apartment where he'd cook for her. Long conversations about everything and nothing. Walks through the city. Quiet evenings where she'd read manuscripts while he worked on gallery business. He met her best friend Kara when she visited from Chicago. Vivienne met Paolo, who she found amusing and slightly intimidating in equal measure. 3 weeks into dating, Nico invited her to a family dinner at Juliana's house. Not the big Sunday gathering yet, just his immediate family. His 2 brothers, Luca and Marco, would be there with their wives. Vivienne was nervous. Meeting the family felt significant, official, like crossing a threshold into something more serious. They'll love you, Nico assured her in the car. Just be yourself. Answer their questions. And don't let Luca intimidate you. He thinks he's funny, but he's mostly just annoying. The house in Brooklyn was warm and welcoming, filled with the smell of cooking and the sound of voices, Juliana greeted them at the door, pulling Vivienne into a hug before she could even introduce herself. "Finally, I meet the woman who's made my son smile," Juliana said. Come in. Everyone's dying to meet you." Luca was 32, charming and quick with jokes. His wife, Teresa, was a nurse, practical and warm. Marco was 35, quieter than his brothers, more observant. His wife, Anna, taught elementary school and immediately started asking Vivienne about books for her classroom. Dinner was loud and chaotic and wonderful. They talked over each other, teased mercilessly, laughed constantly. Vivienne found herself relaxing, enjoying the energy, the obvious love between them all. "So, how did you two meet?" Anna asked over pasta. "Nico's been very mysterious about it." "He sent me flowers," Vivienne said, smiling at the memory. "Red roses, every Friday for a month. No card, no name. I had no idea who they were from." "The tradition!" Teresa looked delighted. "Juliana told me about that. Your grandfather did it, didn't he?" "And my father," Nico confirmed. "Family tradition. When you're serious about someone, you demonstrate patience and intention." "That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard," Anna said. "Marco proposed to me at a Rangers game, on the Jumbotron. Very different energy." Everyone laughed. Luca raised his wine glass. To Nico, who proved he's secretly a romantic, despite years of pretending otherwise. "I'm not pretending anything," Nico said, but he was smiling. "I just know what I want." After dinner, while the wives were in the kitchen helping Juliana with dessert, Luca cornered Nico and Vivienne in the living room. "So?" he said, looking at Vivienne with assessing eyes that reminded her sharply of Nico. "You know what our family does? The real business?" "Luca," Nico warned. "No, it's okay," Vivienne said. "Not yet. But I know there's more to the galleries than art. I'm not naive." "And you're okay with that? With not knowing?" "I'm okay with getting to know Nico first. The rest will come when it needs to." Luca studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Smart answer. I like her, Nico. She's got sense." "Your security guy follows you everywhere," she observed one night after Paolo had walked them to Nico's building and then discreetly vanished. "He's head of my security. It's his job." "Do you really need that much security for art galleries?" "Some of the pieces I handle are worth millions. Security is necessary." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. 2 months into their relationship, Nico knew he was in love with her. It was there in how he looked for her messages first thing in the morning, how his day felt incomplete if he didn't see her, how she'd become the first person he wanted to tell when something good happened. One evening, he invited her to a gallery opening at his Soho location. A new exhibition featuring contemporary Italian artists. It would be her first time seeing him work an event, seeing him in his professional element. She wore a black dress, simple but elegant, and when she arrived, she found the gallery transformed. Champagne flowing, well-dressed patrons examining paintings, soft music playing, and Nico at the center of it all, moving through the crowd with ease. She watched him work, greeting collectors by name, discussing pieces with knowledge and passion, smoothly negotiating sales, charming everyone he spoke to. This was a different side of him, still the man she knew, but polished, professional, commanding attention without trying. "Miss Parker." Paolo appeared at her elbow with a glass of champagne. "Enjoying the show?" "It's incredible. The art is beautiful. The boss has good taste, and he's good at this. See that couple by the Moretti landscape? They came in planning to browse. They'll leave having bought 3 pieces. He knows exactly what to say to make people fall in love with art." She watched Nico guide the couple to another painting, saw how they leaned in as he explained the artist's technique, the story behind the piece. 10 minutes later, she saw them nod, shake his hand, clearly committing to a purchase. He caught her eye across the room and smiled, excusing himself from a conversation to come to her. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think you're incredibly good at this. I've never seen you work before. It's impressive. It's what I love. Connecting people with art, helping them see beauty they might have missed otherwise." He took her hand. "Come, there's someone I want you to meet." He introduced her to the artist, a woman in her 50s from Milan who spoke minimal English. Nico translated smoothly, making Vivienne feel included in the conversation, and she could see how much respect the artist had for him. Later, after the event wound down and they were walking back to his apartment, she said, "Thank you for inviting me tonight. It helped me understand your world better. That was the goal. I want you to see all of me, not just the man who cooks you dinner and sends you roses." He paused. "Though there are still parts you haven't seen yet, parts that might be harder to accept. I know, but I'm willing to learn when you're ready to show me." They were at his apartment. She was curled up on his couch reading, and he was supposedly working on his laptop but actually just watching her. The way she bit her lip when she was concentrating. How she'd occasionally laugh at something in the book and mark the page. "Ti amo," he said softly. She looked up. "What does that mean?" "It means I love you. I know it's fast, that we've only known each other 2 months. But I don't do anything halfway, Vivienne. And I love you." She set down her book, came to sit beside him. "I love you too, even though this feels impossibly fast and slightly insane. The best things usually are." She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And Nico knew with absolute certainty that following his family's tradition had been the right choice. But he also knew he couldn't keep the truth from her much longer. The revelation came on a Tuesday evening, 3 months into their relationship. Vivienne had come to meet him at the main gallery in Soho. He'd told her he'd be finishing up some paperwork and they could grab dinner after. She had a key now, could come and go as she pleased, which still amazed him. He'd never given anyone that kind of access to his spaces before. She let herself in through the back entrance, heard voices from his office, and hesitated. She didn't want to interrupt if he was in a meeting, but the voices were getting louder, more intense. She moved closer to the office door, which was slightly ajar. Through the gap, she could see Nico behind his desk with Paolo beside him. 2 older men in expensive suits sat across from them. "The Castellano family is pushing into our territory," one of the men said in Italian accented English. "They're claiming the East Side galleries should be open for negotiation. They're not open. They're ours." Nico's voice was cold, harder than she'd ever heard it. "My father secured those relationships 20 years ago. I've maintained them. The galleries in that area pay us for protection and favorable import terms. That's our territory. And Castellano can expand somewhere else. He has backing from the commission. I don't care who backs him. If Castellano wants to start a war over gallery territory in Manhattan, we'll finish it. But he won't win." Nico leaned forward. "Make that very clear. The East Side is ours. The relationships are ours. And anyone who tries to interfere will regret it. What about the shipment coming in next week? The customs situation? Paolo handles that. We have people in place, but stay careful. The pieces coming in aren't all documented properly." Vivienne felt her blood turn cold. Territory, protection payments, the commission, undocumented imports. Nico wasn't just a gallery owner. She backed away from the door quietly, her heart pounding. She needed to leave, needed to think, needed to process what she'd just heard. But she bumped into a side table, and a small sculpture wobbled. She caught it before it fell. But the sound was enough. The conversation in the office stopped abruptly. "Vivienne?" Nico's voice. She froze. A moment later, he was there, standing in the hallway, looking at her with an expression she couldn't read. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." The 2 older men left quickly, Paolo escorting them out. Then it was just her and Nico, standing in the quiet gallery, the weight of unspoken truth between them. "You're not just a gallery owner," she said. Not a question. "No. Territory, protection payments, the commission. That's..." She couldn't make herself say the word. "Organized crime. Yes." He didn't try to soften it, didn't try to lie. "The galleries are real, legitimate, profitable. I love this work, take pride in it. But yes, there are other operations. Some art imports that aren't entirely legal. Protection for businesses in our territory. Financial operations. Management of family interests that go back 3 generations. You're Mafia. I'm the head of the Fiorentini family organization. My father ran it before he died. My grandfather before him. The galleries are my passion, but the organization is my responsibility, my legacy." She felt dizzy, moved to sit on one of the gallery benches. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you to love me first. The man, not the complications. I was going to tell you, Vivian, soon. I just needed you to know me, to trust me, before you knew everything else. You think I can stop loving you now?" He sat beside her. Can you? Can you love me knowing what I am, what I do?" She looked at him, really looked at him. The man who'd sent her roses for a month, who'd followed a family tradition to show serious intention, who cooked for her and listened to her talk about books and made her feel less lonely. "I'm terrified," she said quietly. "I'm overwhelmed, and I need time to process this. But I don't stop loving someone because their life is complicated." She turned to face him. "I just need you to promise me something. Anything. Complete honesty from now on. About everything. No more secrets. No more hiding. If there's something I should know, you tell me. If there's danger, I know about it. I don't need operational details, but I need truth. You have my word. Complete honesty, always. And my safety is my top priority. It always has been, from the moment I first saw you. You're not involved in operations. You're not a target. You're protected by me, by Paolo, by everyone in this organization. You're mine, Vivian. That means you're untouchable." The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it was reassuring. "I need tonight to think. To process all of this, but I'm not running. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." She went home, called Kara, and talked for 2 hours about everything. Her best friend's advice was simple. "Do you love him?" "Yes." "Do you trust him to keep you safe?" "Yes." "Then the rest is just details you'll figure out together." 2 days later, Vivian returned to the gallery. Nico was there, and the relief on his face when he saw her was obvious. "I'm staying," she said without preamble. "I thought about it, talked it through, and I'm staying. Because I love you. All of you. The gallery owner and the family head. The man who sent me roses and the man who protects territory. I accept all of it." He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was something precious. "Ti amo, Vivian. I love you too. I promise I'll keep you safe. Always. I know. And I promise I won't ask you to change who you are or leave your family. I know it's your legacy, your responsibility. I accept that. You're incredible. You know that? I'm terrified. But I'm choosing you anyway." The next few months were an education. She met more of his family, learned the structure of the organization without getting involved in operations. She had Sunday dinners at Juliana's house, where his mother pulled her aside one evening. "You know what my son is?" Juliana asked. "I know. And you stay?" "I stay because I love him, because he's honorable in his own way, because family means everything to him, and I respect that." Juliana smiled. He sent you the roses, the tradition. That means you're the one. Welcome to our family, Vivian. 4 months into their relationship, Vivian faced her first real test. She had a problem at work. One of the authors she edited, a difficult personality who'd achieved moderate success, was threatening to sue the publishing house over editorial changes. He claimed they'd changed his vision, ruined his work, and he wanted compensation. Vivian was stressed. The lawsuit could affect her reputation, possibly cost her job. She came to Nico's apartment one evening nearly in tears. He's being completely unreasonable, she said. The changes were minor, and he approved every single one. But now he's claiming we sabotaged his book and he wants money. Nico listened, asked careful questions, then said, "Let me make a few calls." "Nico, you don't have to. You're upset. There's a problem. I can help. Let me help." She didn't ask what kind of calls, didn't want to know the details. But 3 days later, the author suddenly dropped all threats of legal action and issued a public apology for the misunderstanding. When she asked Nico about it, he simply said, "I have lawyers on retainer who are very persuasive." The author realized his case had no merit. She knew there was more to it than that. But she also knew he'd solved her problem without violence, without anything illegal, just by using his connections and resources. "Thank you," she said, "for helping. Always. That's what I do. I protect what's mine. And you're mine, Vivian." 6 months after that first Friday when roses arrived at her door, they were having dinner at his apartment when she said, "Your mother asked me today when we're getting married." Nico looked up from his wine. "And what did you tell her?" "That we haven't talked about it." "Do you want to talk about it?" "I want to know what you're thinking." He set down his glass, reached across the table to take her hand. "I'm thinking that I love you more than I thought possible, that you've changed my life in the best way, that I can't imagine my future without you in it. But I also know we've only been together 6 months, and while my family might expect me to propose by now, following the tradition of moving quickly once you're certain, I want to make sure you're certain too, that you're ready, that this life, my life, is something you can live with long term." She squeezed his hand. "I appreciate that, because I love you too, and I can see a future with you. But I also need more time, to be completely sure, to understand all the implications of being with you. Then we take our time. No pressure, no expectations. We build this relationship at our own pace. Your mother is going to be disappointed. My mother will survive." He smiled. "Besides, we're happy. That's what matters." 1 year after the roses first arrived, they celebrated at the gallery where everything had begun to come together for Nico. Not where he first saw her, but where she'd discovered the truth about him. It felt fitting. "A year ago, I was sending you anonymous roses and hoping you'd give me a chance," he said, pouring wine for both of them. "A year ago, I was posting about mystery admirers and never imagining it would lead here." She smiled. "To dating a man who runs art galleries and a crime family. Living a life I never expected but somehow can't imagine giving up." "No regrets?" "None. You?" "Only that I didn't see you at that cafe sooner, that I didn't start sending roses earlier." He pulled her close. "But I found you eventually, and I'm keeping you." Very possessive, very in love. They kissed as the city lights glowed through the gallery windows, surrounded by beautiful art and the weight of family history. "Nico," she said softly. "Yes?" "Keep sending me roses on Fridays. I know the tradition was just for the first month, but I love coming home to them. Every Friday for the rest of our lives, if that's what you want." That's exactly what I want. Because some love stories start with borrowed sugar or pizza deliveries, and some start with red roses arriving every Friday for a month, sent by a man following tradition, waiting patiently for the right moment to introduce himself. Vivian had received roses from a mystery admirer. Nico had followed his family tradition. And together, they'd built something real from patience, intention, and the kind of love that was worth waiting for. The roses kept coming every Friday. The love kept growing. And they both knew, without needing to say it out loud, that eventually there would be a proposal, a wedding, a lifetime together. But for now, this was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Subscribe for more Mafia romance stories. Join our members area for exclusive content.